The Oxford Dictionary just admitted that they were wrong about Australian English and officially added 11 words that prove we weren't just making stuff up. Some of these took them 200 years to figure out, and their definitions barely scratched the surface of what these words really mean to us Aussies.
You better take cover. Oh.
Now, some of these words will have Aussies feeling vindicated, while our American friends are about to discover why we sound so different.
Nah, we're cactus.
Pig's ass, you and Amy are dinky die.
We've carked it.
Oh, she will be stoked.
She was spewing.
I have to admit, a couple of these I had never heard before. So let me know your thoughts about these in the comments too. And let's start with the category that's most Australian of all, our drinking culture. First up, Goon. Now, Oxford defines it as a plastic foil-lined pouch in which inexpensive wine is sold. But they're missing the full picture here. Pretty much every Aussie teenager at some point has played a Goon of fortune. You hang the Goon bag on a Hills Hoist clothesline, spin it, and whoever it points to has to have a drink. Classic Aussie ingenuity right there. I remember my first Goon of fortune experience at X Block of the student dorm at Charles Sturt Uni in Wagga. Highly sophisticated, drinking fruity Lexia and spinning that silver bag around like it was some ancient Wiradjuri ritual. Looking back, it was probably the most Australian thing that we could have done. Then there's Cask, the box that holds the Goon bag. Now, Americans call it box wine, but that just sounds too formal, doesn't it? We've got the whole ecosystem sorted. The Cask, the Goon, and the sacred ritual of the Goon of fortune. And Slab, officially now defined as a retail pack of beer, typically containing 24 cans or bottles. I remember my first trip to an American liquor store when I moved here, asking for a Slab and getting the blankest stare you've ever seen. The poor cashier thought I was wanting building materials. Try explaining to someone that you need a Slab for the weekend barbecue and they'll think you're about to go and renovate the deck, not stocking up for a good time with your mates. Now here's one that really hits home. Spew. Oxford says it means when someone is bitterly disappointed or very annoyed about something.
Don't say that, because that irritates me, and I punch blokes in the mouth for saying that.
But when an Aussie says they're absolutely spewing, we're not talking about being sick and vomiting. We're devastated or furious. Like how I was spewing when I first saw how Australian lamb prices in the US are actually cheaper than what they are back home. Or when your team loses in the final second. That's the kind of gut-wrenching frustration that only spewing can really properly describe. Americans might say they're bummed or disappointed, but spewing captures that raw Australian emotion perfectly. Now, the sports section is really where Oxford shows that they've been paying attention. Carn, officially the colloquial pronunciation of come on. Every AFL fan knows this one. You'll hear it echoing through the MCG on Grand Final Day. Carn the Swannies, or whatever team you're barracking for. Best and Fairest finally made it in there too, and that's the award for exceptional performance and good sportsmanship in Australian rules football or rugby league. It's not just about being the best player, it's about being a good bloke or a woman too. Character matters as much as what your skill does. And don't argue. Officially described as a push or blow to the face, delivered to fend off a potential tackler. In footy, it's that straight arm technique that says, not today, mate. The name itself is so Australian, it's not called a stiff arm or a handoff like in other sports. It's called a don't argue, because that's exactly what it says to the guy that's trying to tackle you. Now, this is a word that I had never heard before, Balanda. It's a word from an Aboriginal language referring to white people. And Oxford explains it comes from the Makassarese language of South Sulawesi in what is now Indonesia. The word tells a story about Australia's history that most people don't know. The fact that Indigenous Australians were trading and interacting with Indonesian cultures for centuries before Europeans arrived shows how sophisticated and connected these communities were. Custodian now has an Indigenous meaning too. An Australian Aboriginal person who is recognised as having certain ancestral rights to and traditional obligations, responsibilities and authority for a particular area of land and community. This is in many ways recognition of Indigenous culture and understanding of connection to country. These aren't just words, they represent thousands of years of culture and knowledge. The other one that I had never heard before, gunzel. Australian slang for a person who loves trams or trains. And I guess every city has them, those enthusiasts who know every timetable by heart and can tell you the difference between a W-class tram and a B-class. The fact that Oxford recognise this shows that they understand Australian culture celebrates these passionate individuals. I guess we don't mock the gunzels. We appreciate their dedication, even if we don't share their obsession with rolling stock specifications. And regional, meaning away from major cities. This one shouldn't really surprise anyone, but it's close to my heart because so much of real Australian culture comes from regional areas, not just Sydney and Melbourne. I personally spent most of my life living in regional areas of Australia. The bush, the small towns, the mining communities. That's where you find the true Aussie spirit. When Americans ask me about Australia, they usually think of the Opera House or the Great Barrier Reef. But the real Australia, the one with the strongest accents, the most generous hospitality, and the most authentic experiences, that's all regional Australia. Living in America now, I can tell you how confusing it was trying to explain these words to my American mates. Try explaining Goon of Fortune at a dinner party and you can just imagine the looks you get. The concept of hanging a bag of wine on a clothesline and spinning it just for entertainment just doesn't really compute with American culture. Or telling someone you're absolutely spewing about something and watching them back away, thinking you're about to be sick. The interesting thing is how these words reveal cultural values as well. Americans might pregame with elaborate setups and expensive equipment.
Here, brand new item that is great. It is called the Coolest Cooler. Why is it so cool? Well, I'm gonna pull a blender out of it, attach it. It has a battery. Give it a spin, you can make your favorite drinks right here. And
Aussies will make entertainment out of a clothesline and a bag of cheap wine. It's resourceful, it's democratic, anyone can play regardless of budget, and it's quintessentially Australian. In the end, this isn't just about words getting into a fancy dictionary, it's about cultural recognition. For far too long, Australian English was seen as slang or informal, like we're just making stuff up as we go along. But these words represent real Australian experiences, traditions, and way of life. When Oxford recognises these words, they're recognising that Australian culture is legitimate, unique, and worth preserving. That matters, especially to those of us that are so proud of the country that we call home. So there you have it, 11 Aussie words that Oxford finally admits are dinky-die. Which one surprised you the most? I reckon Balanda will be new to a lot of people, even people back home. Drop a comment and let me know which of these words you use most often. Or if there are other Aussie words, new ones especially, that you think Oxford should add next. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Australian language and culture, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your mates, and I'll catch you next time. Hooroo, mateys.